In the stillness of the night, when shadows stretch long and silence dominates, something stirs in the dark. Eyes unseen watch every movement. But who or what lurks in the darkness, waiting to be discovered? Brace yourself for a journey into the unknown, where every flicker, every sound, could be the sign of something far more sinister. Eyes watching from the dark, are you ready to uncover the truth? It all began on a quiet Sunday evening, when Emily first met her new roommate, Sarah. They were both students at the same university, each in need of a place to stay after an unexpected housing mix-up. Emily had found the apartment through an online listing and was excited about the chance to share a space with someone her age. She needed someone responsible, someone she could rely on to keep things in order. When Sarah moved in, she seemed perfect for the role. She was polite, friendly, and quick to settle in. At first, everything was exactly as it should be. The two roommates would share meals in the evenings, talk about their classes, and unwind after long study sessions. They quickly fell into a comfortable routine, and for weeks, it seemed like everything was fine. But there was something strange about Sarah's unsettling aura that would linger in the air, barely noticeable, but always there. Sarah's behavior was peculiar at times, but Emily brushed it off. Perhaps it was just her quiet nature, her tendency to keep to herself. Sarah would often disappear for long periods, sometimes without any explanation, but Emily didn't think much of it. People have busy lives, she reminded herself, and they weren't exactly best friends, they were just roommates. Then, one afternoon, Sarah returned home looking different. Her eyes were hollow and her expression was distant, almost robotic. Emily tried to talk to her, but Sarah just nodded and walked straight to her room, shutting the door behind her. It was the first time Emily felt a sense of unease that she couldn't ignore. She tried to chalk it up to stress, maybe even homesickness, but something deep inside her told her that this wasn't normal. Days passed, and Sarah's behavior grew more erratic. She would stay in her room for hours, only emerging to grab a quick bite or change clothes. Emily's attempts to reach out were met with cold silence, or sometimes a brief, almost mechanical smile. Sarah had become a stranger, someone Emily could no longer recognize. And then one day Sarah vanished. As we venture further into the shadows, the concept of eyes watching from the dark takes on a more disturbing significance. These are indeed just imagined glimmers of light in the corner of your vision, or the distant flicker of a candle flame. No, these eyes belong to something far older, far more dangerous. The darkness is not empty. It's never been empty. Throughout history, cultures across the world have spoken of spirits, creatures, and beings that dwell in the dark, unseen by the naked eye. From the ancient myths of shadowy figures who roam the night to the ghostly apparitions that haunt abandoned buildings. The stories are endless. But the more you listen, the more you realize one thing. These creatures, these beings, are always watching. They have been watching for centuries. The question isn't if these entities exist. The question is, what are they? And what happens when they decide to make their presence known? Imagine walking through a dense forest at night. Trees are thick with leaves, their shadows casting long, tangled shapes across the ground. The air smells damp, cool, and thick with mystery. As you move deeper into the forest, you begin to feel the sense of being watched. Every step seems to echo, bouncing off the stillness around you. A rustling of leaves catches your attention. Turn sharply only to find nothing but the shadow of a tree in the moonlight. But you can't shake the feeling. Someone is out there. Someone is waiting. And it's not just in the forests. These unseen watchers are everywhere. In the quiet of your home, when the lights go out, you feel their presence. In the corners of your room, in the dark recesses of your closet, beneath your bed, their eyes are always there, watching, studying, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. The truth is, our fear of the dark isn't just about what we can't see. It's about what's already there. It's the knowledge that something is lurking, hidden just beyond our reach. And it's not just limited to the natural world. In urban legends, tales of haunted houses and abandoned places tell stories of eyes peering through cracks in walls or from behind forgotten furniture. People who claim to have experienced these hauntings often describe a chilling, almost palpable sensation of being observed, of having their every move scrutinized by an unseen force. This feeling isn't just an anomaly of the mind, it's a primal instinct. Throughout history, humans have been prey to predators that stalk in the night. Whether it's wild animals or other humans with ill intent, our ancestors learned to stay alert, constantly aware of the dangers lurking in the shadows. This instinct is still present in us today, and when the darkness falls, it awakens. As much as we try to rationalize the darkness, the truth remains. There is something there. Something not human, watching from the dark. But who or what are these watchers? And why are they so intent on observing us? The next morning, Emily couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in her chest. Sarah's disappearance wasn't just strange, it was downright unsettling. Determined to get to the bottom of it, she began looking through every single detail of their shared life, trying to piece together anything that might explain where Sarah had gone. Emily started with Sarah's belongings, her clothes, her books, and the small things she'd always left around the apartment. But there was something odd about how Sarah's room felt. Like everything had been carefully placed, as if someone had tidied up before leaving. Emily decided to revisit the apartment's security footage, hoping to catch a glimpse of Sarah leaving. She'd never really thought about it before, but now it seemed like the only place to start. She accessed the building's security system and began sifting through the footage from the past 24 hours. There, on the screen, she saw something that stopped her heart. A figure Sarah had left the apartment, but not in the way Emily had expected. It wasn't the usual rush to grab a coffee or the hurried exit to meet someone. Sarah was walking out calmly, almost as if she were in a trance. Her steps were slow and deliberate, as if she wasn't in a hurry at all. But what struck Emily as even more strange was the person who appeared alongside her, another figure. A shadowy silhouette walking in the background. The footage was grainy, but it was clear enough for Emily to see that someone had been with Sarah when she left, and it wasn't anyone Emily recognized. Her heart raced as she zoomed in on the shadowy figure. Whoever it was, they were wearing a hood, obscuring their face completely. Sarah walked beside them with an eerie calm, as if she were being guided rather than walking on her own. The strange part was, Emily didn't remember Sarah mentioning anyone like this, person who could just show up and walk her out like that. In a frenzy, Emily checked the timestamp. Sarah had left just after 1 a.m., in the dead of night, when Emily had been asleep. Why hadn't she heard anything? Why hadn't Sarah said goodbye? The questions started flooding her mind, one after another, but the answers seemed to slip further away with each passing moment. Then, Emily remembered something she had brushed off before, a small, old-fashioned key that Sarah had kept hidden in her drawer. Emily had noticed it a few weeks ago, but hadn't thought much of it at the time. It wasn't a key to the apartment, and it wasn't a key to anything Emily recognized. She had assumed it was just some old keepsake. But now, she couldn't help but wonder, had Sarah been keeping secrets? Desperation grew within Emily. She had to know what was behind this. Why was Sarah acting so distant? Why had she left without a trace? It didn't make sense. And then, Emily found something that sent a shiver down her spine inside Sarah's drawer. Hidden beneath a stack of old notes was a journal. It was small, leather-bound, and nearly worn out. Emily hesitated for a moment before flipping it open. The pages were filled with Sarah's handwriting, but the further she read, the more she realized that these weren't just ordinary thoughts. Sarah had written about strange dreams, voices whispering her name in the dark, and a deep sense of fear that had been growing stronger over time. The entries became darker with each page, hinting at some invisible force that Sarah seemed to be terrified of. At first, Emily thought it might just be a product of stress, but then she read a final entry that stopped her in her tracks. It said, "They're coming for me. I have to leave. I can't stay here anymore. I won't be safe until I do." The words made Emily's blood run cold. Sarah hadn't just disappeared, she had run, terrified of something or someone. As the days passed, Emily's mind began to unravel. What had Sarah been hiding from her? The journal had opened a door to a darker reality, one that Emily was reluctant to fully enter. She couldn't even help but feel the weight of the words on the page pressing down on her. They're coming for me. Who was Sarah talking about? Who was chasing her? Emily's thoughts swirled as she tried to make sense of it all, but the more she thought about it, the more questions arose. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily decided to dig deeper into Sarah's past. She began by searching online for anything that could shed light on Sarah's history. She was cautious, though she didn't want to invade her roommate's privacy. But this wasn't just about curiosity anymore. It was about finding Sarah, about figuring out where she had gone and why. Her search led her to a few old social media accounts, and they're buried in a forgotten corner of Sarah's past. Emily found something shocking. Sarah had once been involved with a small group of people who believed in strange supernatural forces. Emily was taken aback. These were the same people who spoke about visions, dreams, and dark forces that could control lives. It seemed too bizarre to be true, yet the connections were there. Sarah had known them, met them at a spiritual retreat years ago. They called themselves the Watchers, and from the looks of it, Sarah had distanced herself from them after a brief, yet intense, involvement. Emily felt a cold chill run down her spine as she read more. The group's beliefs were unsettling. Talk of waking the sleeping spirits and crossing thresholds into other worlds filled their pages. But one thing caught her attention. The Watchers believed in an ancient ritual to cross over to another dimension, a place where time didn't exist, and those who entered were never the same again. The more she read, the more Emily realized that Sarah's strange behavior might not have been the result of stress or just a personal struggle. It might have been something far more profound and possibly dangerous. Was Sarah trying to escape from these people? Or had she gotten involved with them again, unknowingly putting herself in danger? Emily couldn't help but wonder if Sarah's disappearance was connected to this group. Could it be possible that Sarah had followed them down a path from which there was no return? The unsettling thought crossed her mind. Had Sarah really vanished? Or had she been taken? The night Sarah left, the figure in the security footage had been too familiar for comfort, and that haunting image of someone guiding Sarah like a puppet on strings made her stomach churn. The more Emily thought about it, the clearer it became. Sarah wasn't just missing. She was a part of something much larger, something terrifying that had taken hold of her. Emily knew she had to get answers, but every step she took only led to more questions. She had to find Sarah, no matter what the cost. If the Watchers were involved, she needed to know more about them. Who were they really? What were they after? Why had Sarah become a part of their world in the first place? But time was running out. As Emily grew closer to the truth, she began noticing strange things happening around the apartment, objects moving on their own, whispers in the dark when no one else was there. Was she just imagining things, or was she being watched too? Desperation pushed her to take even greater risks. Emily decided to track down the Watchers. She had to find them, even if it meant confronting the very forces Sarah had been trying to escape. Emily wasn't too sure what she defined, whether the group still existed, or if they had vanished too. But one thing was certain. She wouldn't stop until she uncovered the truth. Emily's search took her to an abandoned building on the outskirts of town, an old church that had been closed for years. Rumors about the Watchers had been circulating for a while, but nothing concrete ever surfaced. Now, with no other leads, Emily felt her only choice was to confront the possibility that Sarah's disappearance had something to do with this mysterious group. The church stood eerily silent as Emily approached. Stone walls weathered by time, the once grand windows now shattered. It was the perfect place for something sinister to hide in plain sight. She pushed open the heavy rusted door and entered cautiously, her heart racing with anticipation and fear. Inside, the church was dark, the only light coming from the cracks in the old walls. Emily's footsteps echoed in the silence as she walked deeper into the building, following the faint sound of chanting. As she rounded a corner, Emily found them, the Watchers. They stood in a circle, heads bowed, whispering words she couldn't understand. Their voices sounded like a low hum, creating an unnatural tension in the air. The group was small, perhaps no more than 10 people, but the intensity of their presence made it seem much larger. The leader, a tall woman with piercing blue eyes, stood at the center of the circle, her hands raised toward the sky. The others were completely still, as if frozen in time. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She had found them. But what were they doing here, and where was Sarah? The woman at the center of the circle suddenly turned, her eyes locking with Emily's. A cold smile spread across her face. And for a moment, Emily felt like she was no longer standing in the church, but somewhere else, somewhere dark and cold. The leader's voice pierced the silence. "You've come looking for her, haven't you?" she asked, her voice calm, yet filled with an eerie sense of knowing. "Sarah has chosen her path. She has crossed over, just as we all must." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Crossed over? What did she mean? Had Sarah really chosen to disappear willingly? Or had the Watchers played a part in her vanishing? Emily stepped forward, desperate for answers. "I don't understand. Where is Sarah?" she demanded. "What have you done to her?" The leader's smile faded, and she lowered her arms.
Ow.
"Sarah is no longer here in the way you knew her. She has joined us in the other realm, the one beyond this world, the one that exists just out of reach. She has seen what lies beyond the veil, and now she is at peace." Emily's mind spun. The other realm? Is this what Sarah had been afraid of? Was this the truth she had been running from? The idea that Sarah had willingly joined the Watchers was impossible to believe. Emily shook her head, refusing to accept it. "No," Emily said, her voice shaking. "This isn't real. This can't be happening." The leader stepped forward, her presence overwhelming. "My dear, the veil has thinned, and we have seen the truth. Sarah has found her place in the world beyond. She will never return." Suddenly, Emily felt a chill run through her, as if the temperature in the room had dropped several degrees. She turned, ready to leave, but the door she had entered through slammed shut with a deafening bang. The air grew heavy, and the sound of whispers grew louder, like 1,000 voices speaking in unison. Emily was trapped. "Let her go," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please."